Well, I thought it was about time I gave a quick little update on my 125 because it's been about 5 weeks now since he's been on the channel. So, as you can see there from that little intro and from the thumbnail, Rafiki's work is well underway. I always find it funny seeing him without his fairing on. Seeing him without his fancy frock, he always looks weird. But this is what you have to do when you've got a sports bike and you've got work to do, is you have to defrock them to get in there and actually get some work done. So yes, his work is well underway. Exactly whereabouts are we with his work then?
Well, as you can see, all of his fairing on the left hand side is off, and so is his tank cover and of course his seat. Pretty much the same story on the right hand side. All of his fairing is off, with the exception of this one cockpit panel that's still in place. Other than that, all of his fairing is off. Well, I did have multiple jobs to do on this bike. So where are we up to at the moment? Well, for a start, all of his fairing is currently stored on top of the Mini. It kind of became this unofficial place where I store motorbike fairings when I'm working on them. Never intended for the Mini to serve that purpose. Basically, Percy here has become a shelf. A very effective shelf, but a shelf nonetheless. With regards to the work that we have to do, one of the issues was the stator, and to pull the stator says that you have to drain the engine oil, and we did want to do a full service on this bike. So I'm kind of doing both things at once at the moment, because of course draining the engine oil is part of the service and part of the stator replacement. Well, I have managed to replace the stator, and if the footage turns out as well as I hope, then I'll get a video posted about that repair. But that one is now done. I'm working my way through his service. The oil change and filter, oil and filter change is done, but I've got to work through the rest of the items. There are one or two other jobs that I'd like to do whilst he is stripped down like this. For example, his ignition barrel. For those of you that follow the bike, follow me, follow the channel, you'll know that last year he got stolen, and when we got him back his ignition wires had been cut, and I have soldered them back together and it works, but that wiring is damaged and he doesn't have a steering lock at the moment. So whilst the bike is in this state, it makes sense, because the ignition barrel itself, because the wiring plugs in under the tank, and the tank's going to have to be moved out of the way or removed completely as part of his service, it makes sense for me to get on and finally sort out his ignition barrel. And then there's just a couple of other little things that I want to tidy up, like rusty clips. You see, it's just personal preference, it's probably just me being a little bit picky, but rusty bolts, rusty clips is not something that I associate with this bike. And I'm happy to say he hasn't got any rusty bolts and rusty clips except for this one here. And I thought to myself, well, do you know what, next time I replace the rear brake fluid, ideal time, I shall just replace those clips. And I have to be honest and say, never actually replaced the rear brake fluid on this bike. So it's definitely due, it's definitely overdue. So I'm going to get these rusty clips replaced at the same time. And it's interesting seeing the bike like this, because I haven't seen Rafiki stripped down this much since, well, probably since he failed his MOT several years ago on his steering stop. That would have been 2022, and we had to get everything, all the fairing had to come off the bike. In fact, back then, because of where the steering stop is, of course, it's buried down there. The nose cone had to come off as well. But he looks very similar to how he would have looked back in 2022 doing that repair. And I do find when you have a bike with a pretty frock, you know, typical sports bike or a sport tourer, something that's got a nice fairing on it, when you remove that fairing, you inevitably find things that need cleaning. And you could leave them, but I don't like refitting components to a vehicle if they're not clean. So unfortunately the job takes twice as long for me. Well, actually it probably takes 3 times as long, because whilst I'm doing all this work, I'm also filming as well. And so it just seems to take absolutely ages to do anything on a vehicle these days, because of my need to clean everything before putting it back on. And of course my love of film. But we are getting there. It hopefully won't be much longer before we're back out riding on the 125.
Yes, Rafiki's work is well underway. It does look a little bit shocking at first glance, but it's that saying again, isn't it? Sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. And we had that recently with this bike. So seeing him, at first glance, he looks pretty awful. But then to see that just how far the work is progressing, and yes, I am having to do multiple jobs at once. But I'll tell you this, it gives me a greater appreciation of the bikes doing my own work. And I appreciate that not everyone can do their own work. And when I first started riding, I'm not too proud to admit that although I knew a lot about cars, I didn't know anything about bikes. And so I didn't do my own work. And gradually over the years I've done more and more and more. And so now, doing multiple jobs on a bike at once doesn't faze me. Even seeing how bad the bike looks at the moment, it doesn't faze me, because I know that the bike isn't as bad as he looks. He just doesn't have his pretty frock on at the moment. So hopefully it won't be too much longer. We can finish off his service, get those few little jobs done, clean up his fairing, get him back into one piece. Hopefully it won't be long and we'll be back out riding together again.